Okay, so welcome back to part two. What kind of cards are in Prosperity? Dominion Prosperity. And so we were just about to get started with the 5 costing cards. Okay, so here's Counting House. Most people don't like it, but I actually like it a lot. Because I'm a copper strategist. I like to win with copper strategies. And so, even though this isn't the best copper strategy ever, it's a pretty cool one. So what you do is you look through your discard pile and you reveal any number of copper cards from it and put them into your hand. So sometimes it's really useful and other times it's not, because it all just depends on what's in your discard pile at the time. And that's assuming, of course, you didn't trash any coppers as well. Now, there's a card over here to the right of it that makes the Counting House even more useful, especially if other players are attacking you with this card. It's called the Montebank, and it's actually a really cool attack card. And powerful. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. So you get 2 treasure, and then each other player may discard a curse. If he doesn't, he gains a curse and a copper. So that's pretty cool. Your opponent's getting a copper and a curse. Or he can discard a curse. So if he trashes his curses before this attacks him again, well, he's just going to get another curse, and he's going to get a copper to boot. So... that's pretty cool. But if they have a curse, at least they can discard the curse they have and stop them from gaining another one, and a copper for that matter. Now, if that's a double-edged sword too, though, because if you have a card that lets you trash a curse in your hand as well as a curse, and you decide to discard it so you don't gain another one and a copper, well, then you won't be able to trash that curse that you just discarded, obviously, on your next turn. So, is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, at least you won't get that extra copper. But if you're a copper strategist and somebody keeps attacking you with the Montebank, then that makes Counting House a lot more useful because now you have a whole lot more copper cards than you originally had. And so that's pretty useful. These two working together are definitely very useful, especially if you don't have very many of these and you're getting hit by these all the time. Of course, that's assuming, that there's a way to trash curses at some point. So you stop getting the curses. But, and obviously you don't want to get too many coppers necessarily. But so that's a very powerful attack card, and it's definitely one of my favorites. Same with Counting House. So here's some good stuff that I like about Prosperity. Then we have Contraband. Now this one is actually pretty useful. It gives you 3 treasure, and it costs only 5. So it's like a gold, but it only costs 5. And it gives you an additional buy, too. So that's cool. But then when you play this, the player to your left names a card. You can't buy that card this turn. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's true that they could block you from buying something like, the Colony or the Platinum. But as long as you only have 1, they can only block you from buying 1 card. And maybe you weren't going to buy that card anyways. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But if you weren't planning on buying the Colony and they choose the Colony, then it works out for you. If you were planning on buying the Colony and they chose the Colony, well, there's other things you can buy. If you could afford the Colony, you could always just get a Platinum. So, either way, it's pretty cool. And who knows, maybe there's another card you want besides those 2. So, it's kind of cool. I like that. But the best thing about this is if you play it first. It's strategic if you play it before any other treasure. Because they don't exactly know how much treasure you have. Even if they were keeping track, they don't know exactly how much you're going to have at the end of the game. Or at the end of the turn. So, if you play this first, they might choose a Colony. But if you didn't even have enough money to buy the Colony to begin with, then it works out for you. So, strategically, playing this first is the best choice. And I really like it because it's interacting. It's a good way of interacting with your opponents without actually getting attacked in the process. So that's really cool. I like that. That's the main reason, because of the interaction. It adds so much interesting flavor. That's pretty cool. I like that. Then we have Venture. I hate this card. I hate Venture. It's probably the worst treasure I've ever seen. So we won't go over that. Then we have the Rabble. And this one's okay for an attack card. It can be very powerful. But when we play with attack cards, we tend to play with Montebank, and we play with another attack card that I really like. We don't usually play with this one too much, because the other two are better than this, I think. But it is still pretty powerful. So you get 3 cards, and each other player reveals the top 3 cards of his deck, discards the revealed actions and treasures, and puts the rest back on top in any order he chooses. So that is really cool. That's a way of making it so that way their next turn doesn't have very many good, actions and treasures, or any at all, maybe. It's a good way of making sure that they may have some additional victory cards in their hand, too. So it can be very powerful. Especially if you play this multiple times, you could reveal more cards that were actions and treasures, and they would have to discard those, too. So playing a bunch of Rabble in a turn is pretty powerful, for sure. Pretty cool attack card, for sure. Then we have the City. And, it's basically like a village. It gives you a card and gives you 2 actions. But then if there are one or more empty supply piles, you get a plus card. If there are 2 or more, you get a plus treasure and a buy. That is awesome. That is really cool. So if there's an empty supply pile and you play this card, you get 2 cards, you get 2 actions, which is cool. But if you have 2 empty supply piles, you get 2 cards, you get 2 actions, you get a treasure, and you get a buy. Now that's a powerhouse right there. Definitely one of my favorites. So the City is a really cool one. So, awesome. Okay, we have some more costing cards that are 5. So they're not the only ones out there. There's still 3 more. We have the Royal Seal. And it's okay. It's not my favorite, but it's okay. And then we have the Mint. Oh, I hate this card. I have tried it many times, tried to make it useful. It always seems to not work out. Never does. You play it right away, then you're having to spend a lot of time catching up. So this is not a first card. This is not an action you should buy first, ever. Because if you do, you're going to be spending several turns catching up, and is it worth it to get rid of a lot of coppers? I don't think so. Because when you buy this, you trash all treasures you have in play. So, if you buy this in the late of the game and you have golds and platinums, bye-bye golds and platinums. So don't waste your time buying it. This is a very hard card to play with. It can be very useful at times, maybe, but I don't think I've ever played a game where this was like the reason why I won the game. So, not worth it in my book. If you ask me, there's a card in Dark Ages that I like way more than this. Rats is the card I'm thinking of, and Rats is a lot easier to control than this is. This is dangerous, played at the wrong time. And that could be at the beginning of the game, or somewhere in between, at the end or middle. So, not very useful in my book. Rats is a whole lot easier to control. Especially if you have other cards that let you trash cards. Or especially if you have Fortress. Okay, so then we have the Vault. And this one's okay. It's kind of interesting. You get 2 cards. You can discard any number of cards, and you get a treasure per card discarded. So that's cool. So you discard any number of cards, and then you get a treasure per card discarded. And then each other player may discard 2 cards. If he does, he draws a card. So it's kind of cool because it lets you interact with your opponents. Because if they don't have a good hand, they could discard 2 estates, for instance, and draw a new card in its place. So that's pretty cool. I like the Vault. It's a pretty cool card. And that's it for the 5 costing cards. But that's not all, folks. We also have a lot more than that. We have 3 cards in this expansion that cost 6. We also have 3 cards in this expansion that cost 7. So for those of you who always seem to be like one step away from almost getting a province, this expansion is good because it comes with 3 cards that cost 7. So it's possible that one of those might be in the game. And there's actually 4 cards that cost 7. But we'll get to that one later. Okay, so this is another one of my most favorite cards. The Grand Market. But only if you have gotten rid of a lot of your coppers. So, you get a card, you get an action, you get a buy, and you get +2 money. Which is why it's the Grand Market. Because you get 2 money instead of 1, unlike with a regular market from the base game. However, you can't buy this if you have any copper in play. So, don't play any copper when you buy this card. So when you add all those treasures, you're playing treasures, you're playing golds and silvers, etc. Do not play your coppers. Keep them in your hand. It may be tempting, but do not, because otherwise, if you have even if you have only one copper in play, you can't buy this. So careful. It makes you think before you start playing treasure cards, for sure. So, or just simply trash your coppers if you can, and then get this when you have tons of golds and silvers and stuff, or other various treasures that are in this expansion. Even loan would be okay because it's not a copper after all, but it still gives you a treasure, or quarry for that matter. Quarry would be very helpful in obtaining this card for sure. So, and we'll catch up in the next video.